You already know about AJ DeBanza and Darren Peterson and Cam Boozer, but there's a whole crop of freshmen who are going to dazzle you this season.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Monday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We are your hosts. That's Andy Patton. I'm Isaac Shade, and we're elated to welcome you in here where you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listener watching. We want to remind you, you can catch every single episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers who are with us, all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord as well. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. We'll tell you more about Gametime later. Coming up on the show today, we're talking freshmen. Basically, it's a freshman breakout series, which kind of maybe sounds weird, but here's what we mean. We've picked a non-5-star freshman from each Power 5 conference and a best of the rest who we expect to have big seasons, either because of opportunity or skill set or whatever it is. We're going to divide it up between today and Friday. So today, Andy and I are going to tackle the ACC, Big East, and Big Ten. And then coming up on Friday, looking ahead, we will do the SEC, Big 12, and our best of the rest. Now, one of the keys to this is we wanted to make it where it couldn't just be the household names that maybe you've already learned. So we said no 5 stars. And so we're counting the 5 stars as anybody who is a 5-star at all 3 major recruiting sites, 247, ESPN, and Rivals, which On 3 and Rivals is together now. So the people we could not pick, there are 12 of them. Darren Peterson from Kansas, AJ DeBanza from BYU, Cam Boozer from Duke, Nate Ament from Tennessee, Mikael Brown Jr. from Louisville, Chris Senak from Houston, Caleb Wilson at North Carolina, Braden Burries at Arizona, Koa Pete at Arizona, Elijah Arenas at USC, Braylon Mullins at UConn, and Tunde Yesufu at Baylor. And yes, Andy, exactly half of those 12 are in the Big 12. So that's going to be crazy. Also, these have to be players that were in American high school basketball stuff next year. So a Dame Sar coming over, even though classified as a freshman, can't be used in this exercise. I'm still mad that Ichiro won Rookie of the Year over Chipper Jones, even though he was like 57 when he came to America. That's what we're trying to stay away from here, Andy. Right? Does that make sense?
I mean, I'm not going to quibble with you as somebody in the Pacific Northwest about Ichiro, but yes, the overall of the show definitely makes some sense. I'm with you there.
Look, I'm just an embittered Atlanta boy and deal with it. Okay, here we go. We're going to start with the ACC. Andy, we're going to toss it to you first. Who is your pick as, by the way, somebody that didn't wind up where he initially committed?
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not talking about any Dukies on this show. Most of the guys from Duke are guys that are either not going to get a big role in year one or are consensus 5 stars like Boozer. But talk about a guy who almost went to Duke and was pulled away by his coach now at Miami, Jay Lucas. That is Shelton Henderson. Shelton Henderson, 4-star guy in this class with 25th ranked prospect at 247 Sports. So again, not a household consensus top 5 name necessarily, but still a very well-regarded prospect out of this class. Henderson's a 6'3" guard. He's got a 6'7" wingspan, and he played at Montverde Academy, which is a huge basketball recruiting factory in Florida. And we know that Jay Lucas has recruited well from there previously, and now as the head coach at Miami, one of the kind of things that people didn't like about Coach L when he was there was not being able to recruit as effectively in state. And to me, that's something that Jay Lucas has already demonstrated he really wants to do. He wants the best Florida players ending up at Miami. And so to me, that combined with the fact that Henderson fills a need for this team and that it's a completely new look roster, I think gives Shelton an opportunity to really play a big role right away for this team. The projected starting lineup for Miami, according to John Rothstein, has Henderson starting at the 3, alongside a quartet of transfer portal additions, Ernest Uday at the 5, Malik Renault at the 4, and then True Washington and Trey Donaldson at the guard spots. Henderson's a little undersized to be a 3, but again, he's got a 6'7" wingspan. I think he could really be somebody who, even if he's not starting, plays a really big role right away. Again, I think Jay Lucas wants Henderson to have a great season, wants to prove, hey, if you're at Montverde and you want to come here, like, we're going to get you that opportunity to play right away. So I like a lot of things about Shelton Henderson's game specifically, as well as the opportunity that I think he's going to be given at Miami this year.
And Andy, I really hope this will, like, I love that he went down there. You know, it was funny. There was so much conversation for so long, even before Jay Lucas went down there, about the Boozer twins staying in Miami, where they're from. And so it's funny that it's Shelton Henderson that ends up at Miami, but this is good. Like, it's just sad what Miami was the last couple of years. And so I really hope that Coach Lucas and Shelton Henderson, along with all those vets you mentioned, can resuscitate this Miami program that's on a little bit of life support right now. Andy, speaking of a program that has been on a bit of life support lately, I'm going to go with Jalen Haralson at Notre Dame for my choice here. You know, we had those couple years. Yeah, I think back to like Pat Connaughton and that whole era when Notre Dame made Elite Eight. Is that how far they got that year?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and just ran into a Kentucky team, I think it was, that knocked him down. My brain is spinning trying to pull all that back together. But, man, I love Jalen Haralson coming in to this squad. He's a great wing with great wing size, 6'7", 210. He was a McDonald's All-American. You know, you've already got these two returning juniors in Marcus Burton and Coach Shrewsbury's son, Coach Mr. Shrewsbury, you know, and so obviously you've got those two guys. I think he will be a good pairing with them, with a ball dominant Burton and a really good shooter in Shrewsbury. And so as Haralson comes in, what's interesting to watch is that he is more of an athletic, get to the rim, rebound, rip and run kind of wing, more than that like sharpshooter wing that you think about. A true 3-and-D guy. He is not yet. He's got the D of 3-and-D, but needs more consistency with a shot. And when that comes, I think he's going to be in great shape. He should get a lot of open looks because of the gravity that Marcus Burton has. He should get a lot of open looks because of the gravity that Shrewsbury has as a shooter. I also, because of his size, that helps because Marcus Burton's a bit undersized. Andy, what's interesting is Marcus Burton has been so high usage in his 2 years at Notre Dame, literally led the ACC in both of those 2 years. He was 35% usage rate last year at Notre Dame, which, by the way, was fourth in the NCAA. So my question is, can Haralson, as a playmaking wing, a true playmaking wing, be somebody that takes some of that pressure off of Burton? If so, I think it benefits Notre Dame. If not, I don't think that plays into Haralson's skill set quite as well. And so that's the question mark for me. Will Coach Shrewsbury and will Marcus Burton trust Haralson enough to allow him to take that onus off of Burton and let him shine at what he does? If that happens and the front court can be serviceable, Notre Dame could start moving their way back to at least the middle of the pack in the ACC.
I don't think there's a lot of non-5-star freshmen at the power conference level who have such an obvious path to not only playing time, but a very legitimate role than Jalen Haralson. I think this is a great pick. I think that, the ACC has a lot of phenomenal freshmen coming in, and the two that really stood out to me as guys who are expected to play a valuable role are Henderson and Haralson. And so I think these are great picks here. Haralson's a guy, I think you're right. If he can take some of that pressure off Burton, knock down open shots, which is something he needs to prove he's capable of doing, I think he's a really valuable piece for them. And I think the athleticism is going to play up very well in the ACC on both ends of the floor. He's an athletic enough offensive player that he can get to the basket if he needs to, if they need to create a shot and Burton's either off the floor or needs to get rid of the ball. I think Haralson can do that. And I think defensively, he's going to help you out a ton against those really talented wings that he's going to have to guard for Notre Dame this year. So I really like this pick a lot. There was tons of other Isaac, great options we could have chose from here in the ACC. 3 of them at Duke. I think playing time was a main question for them, but Nick Hamenia, a guy that was a 5-star in a couple of places, but certainly could have been in this conversation. Same with Cameron's Cameron's brother, Caden Boozer, as well as Sebastian Wilkins at Duke, a couple Cuse guys, Sadiq White Jr. and Carmelo Anthony's son, Keon Anthony. Matt Abel at NC State is somebody I'm interested to see. Just kind of depends on what that playing time situation looks like for the Wolfpack. Jaden Toombs at SMU, and then Derek Dixon at North Carolina are some other ones to keep an eye on as well.
Andy, I think Caden Boozer, I would not be shocked if he is their starting point guard before it's all said and done. Keep going.
Well, an extremely late riser in the 2025 class, a guy who exploded onto the scene, is now joining Kevin Willard's new look team at Villanova. We're going to project how his freshman season might go coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, if you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or just staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration, that's where it all starts. And that's where DripDrop comes in. DripDrop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. My go-to flavor, I've said this before, I am a black cherry guy, love black cherry in any single capacity. It is a game changer after a workout or on those busy days. Isaac, what is your go-to flavor? I know you got something going right now.
Oh, man. Over here, Andy, I got watermelon, lemon, lime, peach, and passion fruit. I've already been talking about being a Georgia boy today, so you know I got to go with peach. Let's rip it. Go ahead.
I love it. I always keep a few in my backpack, especially when I'm just wandering around, if I'm out and about. It saves me more than once from having that midday crash because of hydration. So right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to DripDrop.com. Use promo code LockedOnCollege. That's DripDrop.com. Promo code LockedOnCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. All right, folks, continuing our quote-unquote freshman breakouts conversation here, looking at non-5-star freshmen who we think could be in line for big first years at the college level. We talked about the ACC in the first segment. Now we're going to switch over and talk about the Big East. Got a couple of fun players to talk about here. Isaac, why don't you start us off with a late riser in that 2025 class?
Yeah, Andy, and late riser was last summer. Acaden Lewis, who ultimately committed to Villanova after reopening his recruitment. Man, I just remember in the early parts of summer of 24, it was like there's this dude, Acaden Lewis, who is just wowing everyone on the recruiting circuit right now, and he wound up just creating a Final Four that was just straight up blue bloodery at its finest, and it was clear. It was like everyone is in on this guy. Everybody wants a piece of him. And you can see why when you watch him. Ultimately, chose to wind up going to Villanova, had reopened his recruitment. He's a 6'2 guard, 180 as listed on Villanova's roster for this year. He's from Sidwell Friends there in DC. So stayed kind of in that same area. One of the things that I think is true, Andy, is we had that growth from him last summer, and I think there's still more, right? Like I think his frame to me projects to be able to still fill out more. I don't know if we want to see him with a 6'2 body. I don't know if we're trying to get up to 200, but in that 190, 195-ish range seems to make a lot of sense to me. I love him because he's a southpaw like yours truly, and I always gravitate toward those guys. But truly, in this day and age where who was it that was saying, Rick Pitino, funnily enough, because Lewis considered St. John's, said we don't have point guards anymore. But this dude, Acaden Lewis, has all of that capability. He's a true lead guard, just electric with the ball in his hands, can do so much. When he gets into the mid-range, I know mid-range is dead, but good grief, he's dynamite from there. Floaters, pull-ups, whatever you need, Acaden Lewis has it in the bag. He's a stud at the free throw line. I think his shooting is going to continue to grow. And so in addition to that bodily growth I talked about, Andy, I think the other area where I would like to see Acaden really settle in and do a lot is on the defensive end. If this were, an earlier era Villanova team with Jay Wright, there would be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He would have to defend. So we'll see how Kevin Willard is going to do with that as he transitions to Villanova. But those are probably the biggest growth points for me with Acaden, is literal bodily growth, and then just on the defensive end. But he does so much offensively. I get, it's hard to really live up on both ends. But man, I love Acaden Lewis. I can't wait to see what he does. Villanova is another one of these schools that we want to see come back up to its former glory. Obviously, and sadly, it didn't work as well as we all hoped with Kyle Neptune, but we'll see if Kevin Willard, after he escaped Maryland, can resurrect this all.
Yeah, I'm interested in what Lewis's playing time looks like for Villanova. They got James Madison transfer guard, Bryce Lindsey. They got Tyler Perkins coming back. They got Devin Askew coming over from Long Beach State on what feels like his 9th or 10th year of college basketball. So to me, I'm just interested what that means for Lewis. I don't think that those players necessarily guarantee that Lewis won't get a big role. I think he's talented enough to certainly play. And like you said, he is a pure, pass first point guard type. And I think that that'll play well for Coach Willard's offense. But yeah, it's going to be really fun to see if that major hype that followed Lewis that summer last year kind of continues into his freshman season for the Wildcats of Villanova. I went a different direction here. I also went with a point guard, but I went with a guy who it's less about his hype coming out of high school and more about what the opportunity to play meaningful minutes right away might look like. And that's Xavier Stink Robinson, a hilarious nickname for Robinson, who is a freshman at Butler, 6'1" point guard. He is a 4-star ranked recruit, 97th in the class, according to 247 Sports. Just a really tough, hard-nosed, physical point guard, kind of two-way guard type for Coach Mata over with the Bulldogs. And I'm frankly not a huge believer in Butler's guard depth, which is part of the reason I think Robinson could end up, getting a big role right away for this team. He's got a lot of length, so even at 6'1", I think that the immediate reaction is like, oh, is a guy that size going to be able to make a big? Every guard I just listed at Villanova is bigger than 6'1". So, and obviously St. John's doesn't believe in starting point guards, so they're starting Ian Jackson there. So there's a lot of size in the backcourts of the Big East. And I think Robinson has enough length and physicality to kind of mitigate those concerns about his height. He also just is really, really hardworking player defensively. Like you can tell that that's what he's kind of made his bank on and the kind of player that he wants to be. Freshman guards tend to not be their best defensively right away. It is rare to see that. So he's going to work very hard defensively. I think he's got room to grow in that space, but offensively, not a great shooter necessarily, but he's great at attacking the rim. He wants to get downhill. He wants to get to the cup. He wants to get to the free throw line. He's also a gifted facilitator, likes to look to find ways to get his teammates involved. I think the last evolution for Robinson is to find that outside shot and become more of a floor spacer. But on a Butler team where I think there is room for somebody to kind of carve out a significant role, maybe even as a starter, I think that Robinson's somebody who could end up putting up some of the best just raw numbers among freshmen in the Big East, not necessarily because he's one of the 3 or 4 best freshmen, but because I think the playing time opportunity is there more than it might be for some others.
Andy, let's have a quick Big East conversation on our way to the transition, because we look at some of these conferences we're talking about and the number of players they have in the top 50. At 247, the Big East only had 4. We just talked about Acaden Lewis, who's one of them at Villanova. He almost wasn't. He was initially committed to Kentucky, as I kind of alluded to. I guess I didn't outright say it. Decommitted and wound up at Villanova. Then you got the 2 guys at UConn, Braylon Mullins and Eric Riba. And it's just interesting that the Big East is going to have to be more of a development of lower rated freshmen as well as transfer thing. Do you think this is an issue for the Big East, or just is what it is?
Not really, for a couple of reasons. One, there's coaches that are phenomenal at recruiting non-top 50 or top 25 freshmen, Shaka Smart being perhaps the most notable of that group. 2, I think that there's some teams that brought in some high-profile freshmen who are just international freshmen. Creighton had a couple of those guys coming in. So to me, I think the top teams in this conference maybe aren't relying on super high level 5-star caliber freshmen necessarily, but they're good in the transfer portal, like St. John's. They're good at identifying the kind of players that fit their system. Again, UConn's one of the only ones that really has kind of gravitated towards those 5-star caliber freshmen. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but it'll be interesting to see if that trend continues to widen. And if that's the case, then I think eventually, the Big East is not consistently competing with the SEC and the Big Ten and Big 12 top to bottom. And I don't think that's going to start happening anymore either.
All right, Andy, some honorable mentions in the Big East. I already said his name, but Eric Ryba at UConn, a big man. He's coming in, initially German, but's been in the States for a while, playing Jameer Jones at Providence, Hudson Greer at Creighton, at St. John's, Kelvin Odie, and then at at Seton Hall. And this is a recent commit, Najai Hines. Really excited to see what he can do. We talked about Villanova and Acaden.
Almost picked Hines.
Yes, seriously. And I wouldn't have faulted you. Like, really excited for him. Chris Jeffrey will be Acaden Lewis's teammate at Villanova. Adrian Stevens at Marquette. Andy just mentioned Shaka Smart. And then finally, Jalen Harrell at Providence. So, Andy, there's some more to wrap out and round out, the Big East. Now, AJ Dybantsa, he ain't flying under the radar, but his high school teammate might surprise some people this year out in Seattle. We're going to turn to the Big Ten to wrap it all up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about Gametime, have you ever decided at the last minute to head over to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's a game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. Well, that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without all the stress of trying to find them. With the money you save on tickets at Gametime, it's great because then you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, whatever it is. Gametime makes all of that possible. Gametime, what is cool is they make buying tickets fast and they make it simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch or kickoff or tip-off. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes all the worry out of buying. Maybe you're tired of endless scrolling trying to find the single best deal, and because there's so many tickets, Gametime has a thing called Zone Deals, which picks the best seats in your section for you. Check that out. We just talked about Villanova, and we're about to talk about Washington. For fans of either team, I got good news for you. The Phillies are hosting the Mariners in Philly tonight, Monday. Gametime has multiple ways to get you in. Tickets on the 100 level for $100 or less. Man, that's a great deal. Go see the Phils and M's playing. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Andy, we're going to wrap phase one of our under the radar-ish freshmen in the 2025 class coming in. We've already hit the ACC and the Big East. Again, looking forward to Friday. We're going to do the Big 12 and the SEC and the best of the rest. But we wrap today's show, part one, with the Big Ten. I already alluded to it, but UW has AJ Dybantsa's high school teammate, and he's ready to make a splash for Coach Sprinkle. Who is it?
It's JJ Mandaquit, and a name that I think a lot of people will know maybe more than your typical borderline top 75 recruit, in part because he was, as we mentioned, high school teammates with Dybantsa, and so got a lot of attention because of that, and also because he was on the Team USA U19 FIBA team that participated in the Euro Cup earlier this summer. Was coached by Tommy Lloyd, and Dybantsa was on that team, as well as a handful of incoming freshmen and a couple other guys who are going to be big time players in college basketball either this year or next year. And Mandaquit was on that team, and he came off the bench. He averaged about 6 points per game, but he also averaged 5.5 assists, which was top 10 for the entire event. He is a very, very gifted passer. He was a big part of the reason that Dybantsa was so successful at Hurricane. Mandaquit also shot 6 of 10 from 3. Again, it was a very small sample size, just those 7 games, but he's proven himself capable of being a facilitator. Again, that kind of, it feels like we're not doing this intentionally, but it does feel like we're trying to disprove Rick Pitino's theory about there being pure point guards, because we've picked a lot of them on this show up to this point. But Mandaquit's a guy that, again, he was a 4-star guard coming out of high school, 74th in the class at 247 Sports. So it's not like he had no real buzz around him. But there was some question of, like, is he getting all this attention just because more scouts are watching this team because of Dybantsa? And I think the fact that he played well with that FIBA club, which had a lot of competition similar to what he's going to see at the college level, makes me feel pretty confident in his ability to be an impactful player, at the very least as a distributor right away. Now, the main question about his freshman year impact is the depth in the guard room for Washington, because Washington went out and got a pair of USC teammates last year in the transfer portal in Desmond Claude and Wesley Yates. Nobody's confusing Yates for a point guard, but Claude certainly is a primary ball handler. That's the role that he's always filled, despite being one of the most prolific turnover players in all of college basketball the last couple of years. They also went out and got a transfer, Kwamari Peterson, from the mid-major ranks, who's going to play a big role. And then they also have Zoom Diallo coming into his sophomore year, who was a 5-star freshman last year. So there's a lot of guard depth at UW, but Mandaquit is such a dynamic passer that I really think he's going to find a role. Is it starting and playing 30 minutes a game? Very unlikely, barring injuries to UW. I don't think that's going to be the case, but is he a backup point guard who eventually kind of carves out more playing time as the year goes on because of his unselfish play and hard work defensively? I could see that becoming a reality for Mandaquit. So probably not the biggest contributor in year one among the players we're talking about here, but a guy that I think deserves some love, deserves some recognition, and I think will be a player a few years from now that we look back and wonder, how did he end up at Washington, and why didn't he have all that buzz around him? Because I think he could end up being very, very good.
I completely agree with you, Andy. And you know what? Hopefully all of that helps Danny Sprinkle have a much better year too for the Huskies, because they were 13-18 last year, I think, won 4 Big Ten games. And so yikes, need to see that get better. Andy, I chose somebody who saw a loaded backcourt situation and decided to go elsewhere. And that's Darius Adams, going to be a freshman at Maryland this year. Where it's funny, I just talked about Kevin Willard leaving Maryland for Villanova in the last segment, where Buzz is leaving Texas A&M to come over to Maryland to be his head coach. Adams was originally, Andy, committed to UConn. He's a big guard, 6'5", 175. I guess I should say tall guard, because he is kind of slender at 175. But that's another crowded backcourt situation, similar to what you talked about Washington. Silas Demery comes in. They got Solo Ballback, a whole host of others. And so he ultimately backed out of that. I probably would have too, Andy, if I'm being honest, and wound up choosing to go to Maryland. He is from La Lumiere, played at La Lumiere there in Indiana, similar to Jalen Haralson, who I started our conversation today, or was my first pick here. But he's originally from New Jersey, and so heading back to the East Coast a little bit there. He's another McDonald's All-American. What's interesting is that Buzz Williams brings with him Farrell Payne from Texas A&M, gets in Miles Rice. Both of those guys established college basketball players, which means that Darius Adams, though he comes in with a lot of skill, a lot of capability, similar to what you said about Mandaquit, he doesn't have to be the guy. Right. There's opportunity for him to just kind of work his way into college, figure out what he needs to do and do it. But he can be the guy. He's very good. While Jalen Haralson, his high school teammate, was not the outside threat, Darius Adams is. I see him as a more capable outside shooter at 6'5". He's just got one of those repeatable shots that you want to see, right? That consistency. But Adams also is a reliable passer. I wouldn't put him in the same passing echelon as I would Haralson, but he is a capable passer and a smart player. Andy, when I've watched tape on him, I like how Adams plays the game. I like how he interprets and dissects things. And so really interested to see. Similar to what I said about Acaden Lewis, one area, and you already heard it, obviously, as I said, he's 6'5", 175. Really want to see Adams' body just grow, really at 6'5" to get up to 190. You don't want to lose a lot of that. But part of the issue right now, it goes hand in hand, is he's not like a rim attacker. He's not like he can get out in transition and run, but he's not going to like punch the lane and attack the rim and finish. He's going to look to pass and those other things. So body growth is going to allow that. And obviously as he gets to Maryland and gets in their strength and conditioning program, that's going to work. But man, I really think Darius Adams is going to help. Obviously Maryland lost a lot, but Adams, along with Rice and Payne and others, should make the Terps contenders again in the Big Ten.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's hilarious that we're talking about the same conference and we're talking about Washington and Maryland. I haven't gotten over that yet, just from a geographic perspective.
ACC and Pac-12.
Right, exactly. But with Maryland, yeah, I think it's a similar question of just what the playing time looks like in year one. I mean, you have Rice, like you mentioned. You also have Isaiah Watts. who also was originally at Washington State. So those two guys are going to play a lot. Diggy Coit comes over from Kansas. Ricky's Passmore also comes over there. So I think that the playing time is a bit of a question, but I think Adams is somebody who, like you said, I think as he gets into a college weight room and as he gets a little bit stronger and fills out, I could see him being somebody who's playing a much bigger role by the end of the year than he does at the beginning of the year. And certainly if Buzz is willing to start trusting him, I could see him really being somebody who kind of breaks out and blossoms towards the end of that year. Isaac, lots of honorable mentions here. There's 4 here that I want to talk about. One in particular that I almost picked for this list. First, we have Trey McKinney at Michigan, Amari Bynum at Ohio State, and Cam Ward at Michigan State. But the guy that really stands out to me is Caden Mingo. Playing time.
Too, Andy. I went with him too.
Yeah, I think Caden Mingo's a guy. I mean, he was borderline top 25 in this class. He's 34th at 247 Sports, 4-star guy. He's a little undersized guard, but I think the playing time opportunities for him at Penn State are going to be there. And again, I think that really is a compelling kind of part of this here. Is I think he's going to play. I think he's going to get opportunities. He's long. He's only 6'2", but he's got a 6'6" wingspan. I like Caden Mingo a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him, just from a performance perspective, be one of the more productive freshmen in the Big Ten this year. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today, folks. Again, we're going to do this on Friday. So we're going to talk about the other 3 conferences, or the 2 other conferences, the SEC and the Big 12, as well as kind of our pick for the best of the rest non-Power 5 freshmen coming in that we think are going to be productive this upcoming season. Going to be a fun show on Friday. But again, that's going to wrap it up today. We got 3 more fun shows in between as we keep you up to date on what's going on in college basketball, whether it's some late transfer portal or other roster movement, which, folks, there is still some of that happening.
Crazy.
We'll keep going on our team previews and other fun stuff as well. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Cheers to the McBruins. And until next time, peace out.